त्यांच्या जवळ बसला असता जास्त तू जर बसलास तरी
किती वेळ होतो
इनपुट हाय ठेवला ना.
हा चालू कसं
वंडरफुल. काय पाहिजे दिसत नाहीये. नो काही सांगू नको. इट नो डिस्कशन ना बिकॉज इट विल गो इन डिस्कशन. अनुरिता तू याची इथे बसू शकते का इथे नाही. कनक आहे ना कनका तू उधर जाऊ. नेक्स्ट टाइम यू विल बी देयर. तू काय बोल नको प्लीज. तुला पण घ्यायचं कारण तू पण आहे ना ट्रेन. आता मला आठवलं तू दिसते पण त्याच्यामध्ये. व्हेरी गुड. थोडी इकडे आहे का आता तू आहे ना तू इथे बस. वंडरफुल. अजून मागे होतो आणि बोलू नको तिच्याशी. इकडे होतो डावीकडे डावीकडे तुझ्या डावीकडे. व्हेरी गुड. फक्त हे बघायचं आणि 7 साईड न्यायचं. ओके आता आपण स्टार्ट करू. 3 वेळा ओंकार. ओम श्री गणेशाय नमः. ओम श्री पतंजलये नमः. वक्रतुंड महाकाय कोटिसूर्य समप्रभ निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा. योगेन चित्तस्य पदेन वाचां मलं शरीरस्य च वैद्यकेन योपाकरोत्तं प्रवरं मुनीनां पतञ्जलिं प्राञ्जलिरानतोऽस्मि. आबाहुपुरुषाकारम् शङ्खचक्रासिधारिणं सहस्रशिरसं श्वेतं प्रणमामि पतञ्जलिं प्रणमामि पतञ्जलिं प्रणमामि पतञ्जलिं ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Okay, so I will now open the forum for this program, and this program has mainly two items. One is Dr. Thite's lecture on early forms of yoga. So I will let Dr. Thite speak about the introduction to the subject without giving my own interpretation. And second part of the program is the certification of some students related to teacher training. So they are becoming yoga teacher. And then this may be, I do not know, this may be the last session of before I depart to West. But there is a chance that I will teach one more batch before I go. So I will speak about the yoga teacher training in the second part of this program. So I will now request Dr. Thite to start his speech titled Early Forms of Yoga. So please bear with the speech for at least 45 minutes.
Friends, today's main program is certification program. So far there have been more than 10 programs of this nature, and every time I have given a small lecture on some aspects of yoga philosophy and yoga practice. Today I am going to speak about the early forms of yoga. The history of yoga can be divided into three parts. One, pre-Patanjali. Second, Patanjali himself. And the third, post-Patanjali. Thus, yoga has a long history. Although it has been recently popular not only in India but practically almost all over the world. But now yoga is taken in the restricted sense, and that sense is a kind of exercise. Particularly many people nowadays want to be slim, and slimness is considered to be a sign of beauty, and as a part of exercise they are attracted towards yoga. Please remember that many people pronounce the word yoga as yoga, but that is not a correct pronunciation. The word is yoga, and the word yoga is derived from the root yuja. I will write it on the board here. So this is the root, and yuja means to join, to connect, and yoga means the act of connecting. Now we have to connect our mind with God, and God is an important part in yoga philosophy. Now, let us go back to Patanjali's yoga system and try to understand the history of yoga philosophy and practice. As is well known, Patanjali's yoga system is called Ashtanga Yoga, having 8 parts of yoga, in which Yama, Niyama, Asana, etc. There are 8 parts, and each of them is like a step toward the last part, namely Samadhi, that is full concentration of mind. And for this concentration, each aspect is very important. But in the earlier part of the history of yoga, these parts, 8 parts, were slowly being developed, and the main part was that of penance, tapas. So many people, they were called tapas, that is those who perform tapas or penance. By and large, there were 2 types of intellectual leaders in ancient India, and they were called Rishi and Muni. So I will write these words. Many times these words are considered to be synonymous, but it is not so. We consider that some people with long beard are Rishis or Munis. But beard is not an essential part. It is the way of life which distinguishes Rishis from Munis. Both were intellectual leaders, but there was a lot of difference between them. And both Rishis and Munis were the earlier forms of yogis. Now, what is the peculiarity of Rishis? Rishis were mainly sages composing various prayers to gods, performing Vedic rituals. On the other hand, Munis were performing penance. They used to stay slightly far away from the main part of the society. Rishis used to be householders. They wanted to be rich in this world and enjoy this world. Be happy with food, wealth, children, and so on. On the other hand, Munis used to practice penance and lead an isolated life. Most of the Munis were either unmarried people or even after their marriage, those who had gone to forest in order to perform penance, and thus they were forest dwellers. The word Rushi is derived from the root Rusha, and the root Rusha literally means to go fast. This root is remotely connected with the English word rush. So Rishis were those who used to rush forward, and thus they were leaders of the society, intellectual leaders, and the highest aim of them was to achieve heaven, because heaven was considered to be full of bliss and happiness. The happiness on the earth is mostly negative. For example, when it is summer, we want some cold air or cold drinks and then feel happy. But in the winter, we like some hot drinks or hot air, so our pain is removed and then we feel happy. Similarly, when we are thirsty, if we get water, we feel happy. That is, when the thirst is removed or the pain of thirst is removed, we feel happy. Same in the case of hunger and other needs of human beings. So all these pleasures are negative pleasures. That is, removal of pain is considered to be joy or happiness. There is some restraint in our body or in our mind, and when that restraint is removed, we feel happy. But the pleasure in heaven is not negative. It is not satisfaction of some needs, but it is an absolute pleasure. So gods stay in heaven, they enjoy, they also drink nectar or amrita, not because they are thirsty, but simply for the sake of enjoying the joy of amrita. Similarly, they eat food not because they are hungry, but only for the sake of enjoyment, and so on. And therefore, Rishis also wanted to go to heaven and be happy. And the surest means to achieve heaven was considered by them the performance of certain ritual which was called sacrifice or yajna. So Rishis used to perform sacrifices, they used to propagate sacrifices, and they also used to work as priests in the sacrifices performed for the sake of other rich people. So the main aim of Vedic religion in general and of Rishis was heaven. On the other hand, the main aim of Munis was moksha or liberation. the Munis used to consider the world in a pessimistic manner. They describe the world to be full of unhappiness. And in order to be absolutely happy, the best way was to be free from the cycle of birth and death. And the same is called moksha. There are numerous words used in the sense of moksha. Some people call it nirvana, some people call it kaivalya, and so on. So the words may be different, but the meaning is almost same. That is, to be liberated from the world, to be liberated from the cycle of birth and death. So everybody wanted not to be born again, not to live again the life full of pain, not to die again, not to be diseased, and thus one wanted to be liberated or get salvation, that is moksha. So the aim of Munis was how to get moksha, and for that purpose different philosophers who were basically Munis, they suggested different paths. And as is well known, there are 6 systems of philosophy in India which are considered to be astika. And the word astika means one who accepts the authority of Veda. Of course, there were some others who did not accept the authority of Veda, and they were called Nastikas. So the philosophical systems were divided into 2 main branches, Astikas and Nastikas. Among the Astikas, there were 6 schools named as Sankhya and Yoga, Nyaya and Vaisheshika, and Purva Mimamsa and Uttar Mimamsa. The word Uttar Mimamsa is also used in the sense of Vedanta. So these philosophies, they were called Astika philosophies. And there were 3 main Nastika schools. One was Buddhism, another was Jainism, and the third one was philosophy of Charvaka. These 3 schools, they denied the authority of Veda. But it is only the Charvaka philosophy which denies the concept of liberation or moksha. All the other Nastika schools as well as Astika schools, they accept the concept of liberation, although they use some different words, but all of them, they accept the concept of rebirth, and everyone wanted to be free from that cycle of birth and death. And all these philosophies, were a production of Munis. Munis, as I told you, they were living in forests, somewhat away from the main society. And the etymology of the word Muni is slightly difficult. From the word Muni we get the word Mauna, which is very well known. Mauna means silence, and silence was also an important part of penance. So the followers of Muni school, they used to observe silence. They didn't speak with others. But what is the etymology of the word Muni? How the word Muni came into existence? In this connection, I have written an article and I have tried to show that the word Muni must be connected with the Dravidian word Mun. The word Mun literally means front part, and Muni is one who is in front. That is, he is also a leader. He stands in front of the society, he leads them, and he preaches them how to get liberation. Now, as you know, Vedic literature is the oldest literature, not only in India but all over the world, and there is no difference of opinion, particularly about the antiquity of Rigveda. And in Rigveda also there are a few references to Munis. There is a line, Munayaha Vatarashanaha Pishangaha Vasate Mala. So all these words are very important. They are called Vatarashana. Vatarashana literally means those who have wind as their belt. This indicates that these Munis, they used to be naked, and just as in later literature we get the word Digambara in the sense of naked, that is one who wears quarters as his garments. I think that the word Vatarashana is also an euphemistic word and almost similar to Digambara in the sense of nakedness. So they used to stay naked. Again, they are also described to be Pishanga. The word Pishanga means yellowish. So they may be wearing yellowish garments. Some of them were naked, some of them wearing yellowish garments. And in later literature, we find that the monks either use yellowish garments or slightly reddish yellowish garments. In Marathi, the word Bhagava, color Bhagava is used, and the word Bhagava indicates yellowish, reddish shade. So there were some monks who used to wear such garments. They are also described as wearing dirt. So they used to be dirty. I have written also a paper on dirtism in ancient India. So to remain dirty was also a part of penance. It was also a kind of yoga or a part of tapas. There is a famous story of Muni, namely Valmiki. The word Valmiki is derived from the word Valmika, and the word Valmika means anthill. So this Valmiki, he was practicing penance. He was staying at one place and he was without movement, he was staying, and around him an anthill grew. And when he came out of that anthill, then he was called Valmiki, that is, born out of anthill. So there were many such people who used to practice dirtism. For a long time they didn't take bath. Take for example the case of a performer of Vedic ritual. When he starts performing Vedic ritual, he enters into a ceremony called consecration or diksha, and at that time he takes bath. Afterwards he performs the sacrifice. He is called yajamana or sacrificer, and only after the sacrifice or the yajna is over, then he takes bath, and that bath is technically called avabhrutha. And in between, the sacrificer does not take bath. The smallest soma sacrifice is performed for about 4 or 5 days. So at least for 4 or 5 days he does not take bath. But there can be some longer sacrifices. The sacrifices performed for 12 days or 1 year, 12 years, or even 1000 years. We get the descriptions of such sacrifices in Vedic texts. And during all these days of performance of Vedic ritual, these performers used to remain dirty, that is, without taking bath. Of course, we have to differentiate between cleanliness and purity. Even in Patanjali's yoga system, there is a rule about shaucha. The word shaucha does not mean cleanliness, it means purity. So, even according to Patanjali's system, one has to remain pure. But there is no mention of cleanliness in yoga system. So he may be apparently or physically unclean, but mentally he is pure. There are no evil thoughts in his mind. Therefore he is pure. And this is what is meant by the word Shaucha. Shuchi. Shuchi literally means bright or shining. And Shaucha is an abstract noun from the word Shuchi. That is, he is shining, and we often find a kind of luster around the face of a yogi or a muni. So they are shining on account of their spiritual luster. But that doesn't mean that they are physically clean. There was one particular sect mentioned in the Vedic texts, which also, according to my opinion, a predecessor of Yogin. These people were called Vratyas. The word Vratya in Sanskrit, classical Sanskrit, and also in languages like Marathi, is used in a bad sense. That is, in Marathi the word Vratya is used in connection with a boy who is very naughty, who does not pay attention to studies, and sometimes he is a mischievous person. Such a boy is called Vratya. In Sanskrit also, the word Vratya stands for a person who has not been initiated at his proper age. The word initiation means Upanayana, or what we call in Marathi Munja. So the ritual of Upanayana was very important in the life of every man belonging to Brahmanas, Kshatriyas or Vaishyas. And it characterized the beginning of study. So only when Upanayana is performed at a proper age, then one can study and one can be an ideal student. At least for 12 years one has to study. But those who were not initiated at their proper age, and consequently who did not study Veda and were living a kind of freelance type of life, they were called Vratyas. But in Vedic literature, the word Vratya is not used in the sense of somebody who is mischievous or somebody who is not properly initiated, but rather in the sense of